I got 10 DM tips for all and especially new Dungeon Masters, but I'm not messing around this time. I'm bringing in some backup with me here. This is a collaboration video with Luke Hart from the DM's Lair. He has a Dungeons & Dragons YouTube channel that entirely focuses on DM tips. So we put our heads together for a really fun collaboration of 10 tips total, 5 here with me and 5 over here with him. Although technically I have tips 6 through 10, but you should stay here, watch this video first, then go check him out. You really should go check him out. He has a lot of stuff on there that I watched before I even started doing YouTube, and he's been a huge impact on me. But I'll get into that at the end of the video. So the link for his video will be down in the description, or wait to the end of the video and it'll be at the end card. So let's get into these DM tips. Number 6 is to train between sessions. I'm sorry, I had to use the coaching analogy there, but what can you do when you're not playing Dungeons and Dragons to get better at DMing Dungeons and Dragons, right? From this another sports analogy, but it takes 10,000 hours of deliberate practice at something to master it. So how can you rack up that time before you're playing 10,000 hours worth of sessions? Because that's a long time right there.
Have you played 10,000 hours of sessions in D&D?
No, I not even close, bro. Like now, 10,000 hours of what we're about to get into, maybe, I don't know. We'll see. Probably not though. I'm still hustling and grinding. But this is what I'm talking about. Like when I first realized when I wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons, I was like, well, crap. This isn't a video game that I could just turn on anytime I want and play till all hours of the night by myself. Like,
yeah.
I need people to be here or whatever. I need to schedule time with people to play. So what do I do in the other times? I want to be better. I want to improve. I want to do more. So like, what can I do? So for me, myself, I have a little mini list here is read resource material, read books, read through the Dungeon Master's Guide, especially for new Dungeon Masters, read through the Player's Handbook, especially because so you know those rules. Yes. Watch the YouTube videos. Good job and props to you for already doing one of the steps is watching videos here on this channel. Oh my God, that just came on naturally.
My channel too, dude. They got to go to my channel as well.
This channel is really probably the best bet to go to.
Oh man,
no, but for real, Luke's entire channel is about Dungeon Master tips. I know I go into a lot of homebrew and Dungeon Master kind of things, but like you're a great example of honestly what helped me become a better Dungeon Master is I spent hours watching videos, including yours, to be able to get better. Because what else can you do with that time? Read articles, role play with your friends, crazy voices that you talk to yourself in the car. All those things you can get better at in your own time.
Yeah, exactly. Books, dude. There are books out there that are published. You know, the monsters know what they are doing. It's an amazing book. Like I got it on my bookshelf back here. Yeah. I can't pronounce the guy's last name, but his first name is Keith. And it's a great book, dude. So yeah, there's tons of stuff you can do to get better and to improve, you know, and you're going to run. So why even care about getting better? Why even care about improving? All right. So you are going to have more fun, right? The better you do something, like when you're playing basketball or you're playing football and you suck, it's not a whole lot of fun sometimes, but when you have a certain level of competence, the game is a lot more fun.
You look forward to it. You're like, I can't wait to play. Yes.
But when you suck at tennis, and you're gonna go play tennis, it's like, oh come on, why?
Can we do something else? What a great sports analogy in this whole thing. Love it.
I had to cater to your thing, right?
Well, welcome. But honestly, like I hold myself to a pretty high standard when it comes to DMing. I know, you know, because I think of them differently than a player. I know they're one of the players or whatever, but they just have more responsibility. So I wanted to know the rules. I wanted to read that Player's Handbook. I wanted to read that Dungeon Master's Guide. So I understood what was going on, you know?
Yeah, and I think, so we talk about this 10,000 hours to master something. Well, here's a cold, hard truth. You know, you will probably never master it, and you don't need to master it. There is something called the 80-20 rule. I think it's called the Pareto principle. Is it Pareto or something like that? I forget. These principles get confused in my head. But the idea is that you can get 80% of the benefit of something with 20% of the effort, or in this case, 20% of the learning and knowledge. If you learn the proper things, the right things, and you get good at the right things for being a dungeon master, you can reap about 80% of the benefits. Right. And then there's just like, you know, the learning and stuff and
huge diminishing returns as you keep
exactly
doing,
that's the word.
Keep going.
Diminishing returns. Yeah. So don't feel overwhelmed by all the
every
stuff
waking
that's out
hour.
There.
You got to get to
No.
those 10,000 hours. You gotta no.
You just got to do the basics, learn the most important skills and stuff that's going to take your game to the next level, and then you're going to get better very, very quickly.
Right.
So don't feel too intimidated by this whole thing.
Well, and I'll even combine both those tips together. The 10,000 hours and the 80-20 rule for some math here is like with 2,000 hours, my God, you could be so good. Like you could be indistinguishable probably from someone with 4,000. You know what I'm saying? If we're trying to think about, like, I don't log my hours. I'm sure you don't either.
If we take 2,000 hours divided by your typical 4-hour game session, we're down to 500 hours. Okay, so 500 hours. Now, if you divide that by like 52 weeks, you're down to like, 10 years, right? So like 10 years of a game a week.
But if you watch some YouTube videos and you go to our channels, and you can hack down your.
You go. That's why you have to start being a dungeon master since high school.
Oh
right?
gosh! Now we're in your world.
Number 7, the dungeon master is not a player, so don't act like one. All right, so this is something that annoys me. Like there'll be people be like, "Oh, the dungeon master is just another player," or something. No, that's not your role. Is not to be a player. That's not what you were doing at the game table. You are running a game. You are preparing a game, and then you are running the game.
So much different than what everyone else is doing.
Yes, it's night and day difference. Yeah. And you're not trying to win. Like your players are trying to win, overcome all of the challenges
you are putting in front of them. Yeah.
Yes, you know what your job is? Your job is to lose. That's your job. It's night and day difference.
Yeah.
Don't act like a player. Don't approach the game thinking that you're just another player. Your expectations can't be the same as a player. Otherwise you're going to fall into some of these traps like the DMPC that we'll talk about and stuff. Yeah. It's just not what you do. Now, are you there to have fun? Yes. Are you there to play the game? Yes. But you're playing a different game in a lot of ways than your players are playing.
If you think of yourself as just another player, it's very unempowering, and it takes away some of the stuff that you need to step up to as the dungeon master. There's a lot of things having to do with the game, a lot of time prep before the game that we talk about over on the video on your channel. Like there's a lot of things you have to do to like handle social interactions between people. Like you are the leader of the group and not just another one of them. Like you have to step up.
And that's the big key here. The dungeon master most of the time is viewed as the leader of that gaming group. You're the leader, right? You take care of a lot of these things. Scheduling things.
Issues
if there was
players,
yes, problem players, like people. No, you could be like, "Oh, it's not fair. The dungeon master shouldn't." You could go cry in a corner. You could get your violin out and be like, "It's not fair that the dungeon master has to do those things." You could like take your big boy pants off and whatever. But the fact of the matter is that people look to the dungeon master as a leader. Right. They will look to you to take control of situations, to deal with problem players, to schedule the game, to make sure the game keeps on going. Now, you can whine and cry about whether that's fair or not. I don't care. It's a fact of the matter of the world that that's the way it is. So be that leader, take control, take on that responsibility,
And if you do step up to that, you're going to have a much better sense of your table and like the pulse check of your table, how people are feeling. If you step up, you're the go-to now. People will come to you with issues. They have a direction of where to go if they're having an issue at the player. Somebody said something or they can't come or like whatever's going on. Like you are the now like gravity pull in for all those types of things, and you get a better sense of your table. You know what's going on. You have a better understanding of everything. So I mean, it's a win-win for me. Like I step up, and I think it's beneficial.
And it's beautiful. Like I love that leadership role. Yeah. I gravitate toward that. I do not want to just sit there and be a follower. I love and I enjoy being the person that brings together a bunch of people to play the game. I love being the person that facilitates people's fun. I can't force them to have fun, but I can create an environment where fun can happen. And I love that leadership role.
It's in your control, and you have the ability to affect it and enact change on it and make sure that it's preserved and good.
You have the honor of being that leader, and there is responsibility that comes along with it. So don't shirk the responsibility because you might find your leadership role yanked out from underneath you when your player's like peace out and leave your game. So, embrace the responsibilities of a dungeon master, I guess.
Well, and I also think too, this affects the game as well, like the actual playtime game as well. Because if you're in this leadership role and it comes down to a game time where there's a rule decision about some rule interpretation or some very unique situation, and you make a ruling on it, you shouldn't necessarily be questioned. The dungeon masters, has the final say. And if you're so passive and then I guess it's this, then they're gonna be like, no, I think it's this because look at the rule. And like if they're gonna go back and forth, like no. Like you need to be that role of this is what's going down.
You got it. Yeah, you got to cowboy up sometimes.
Step
yeah,
up.
It's exactly. Yeah, they have to respect your authority.
Yep.
Respect my authority. Or whatever. So you have to. Yeah. So it's going to take some growing into it, and improving and getting better at it. You know what I mean? But it's a good thing. It's a good thing to be the dungeon master, and it is awesome. It's just you're not just another player. You're more than that. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily more important than all the other players. That you're the big man or girl. Right. Look at me.
Yeah.
But I will say this: if you're not there, the game does not happen.
And I think you should know that. And it's like an understanding thing that you do have all these things going on and you have this power to say the rules are a certain way, do something, make a mechanic of a monster that could just kill them all. Like you have all this power, but you have to use it fairly and wisely and funly.
Yes. It is humility is what it is. So you have the power to do all of these things, but you have to be humble and you have to use it justly and wisely. It's the lion that could eat that mouse, but lets it go. You know what I mean?
For sure.
So
number 8, train to be a better dungeon master during the session. I know we're back to a training analogy again, and we talked about how to train in between game sessions, but now it's like during a game session, back to the deliberate practice example, you don't accidentally just get better at stuff. I guess when you play and experience will come to you, you'll eventually get better at stuff. But if you specifically focus on things to get better at, goals you set for yourself as a dungeon master to be able to do and accomplish and maybe even track in some way, you'll get better much faster if you're deliberately specific on trying to get better instead of just like, I'm dungeon mastering, it'll happen.
Exactly. Yeah. And that requires you to be self-aware, you know, self-aware of what your weaknesses are, self-aware of the things that you want to get better at and that you want to grow at,
Right.
So like as an example, this is a couple of years ago, but I wanted to get better at improvisation of being able to just do stuff on the seat of my pants. And so I literally went into several game sessions having prepared almost nothing, and my players were in a swamp, and I was focusing on improving the entire game. Almost no prep whatsoever. And it wasn't because I thought I was awesome. It was intentionally because I didn't feel I was good at it, and I wanted to get better at it.
Where will I
So
crack?
I put myself in that situation to train during that game session.
And we just did in the first 5 tips of this little collaboration we're doing. We talk about game prep and how you need to make sure your game prep and all that kind of stuff. And then an example that I even gave was that like I had a high school session that I ran that I purposely prepped less for just to see and test that muscle of mine to see if I could get better at it for sure. So I 100% love that for myself, running certain types of like running multiple monsters and trying to see how many different types of monsters could I run and still be able to remember their abilities or legendary actions. Like, oh crap, I didn't use 2 of the legendary actions.
I once had a game session with my Sword Coast Guard group. I think I literally had about 10 different monsters in the battle. It wasn't intentional, but they ended up bringing down different parts of the dungeon on them. And I'm like 10 monsters at once, and I never want to do that again. But reminded me of that.
Yeah, and like I've finished fights before. I'm like, wow, I didn't use a lair action. Like I think I used it the first round, but then I forgot about it. And then like legendary action. So I would either implement and I would try to have that be my focus for the next game prep. I am going to this fight. My goal, my deliberate specific goal as a dungeon master is to run legendary actions and use them every time. And then I failed again. And I was like, well, crap. So then I had to implement something and I needed a self-intervention, but I knew I needed that because I failed multiple times. So I had these little gems. I had these 3 little gems and I have legendary actions, 3 empty circles with 3 physical little marbles in them that I use and it gives me something tangible to work at, and now I can do it without them. But I wouldn't have known that if I didn't specifically train for it.
Dude, that's great. I literally had a dragon fight last night, and I forgot to use the frightening presence.
Oh, at the beginning, yeah.
They never had to deal with the frightening presence, which is a terrifying thing when you have to run away and you can't fight.
Right.
And like half of your party or something isn't helping you against the dragon. Oh man, yeah. So I totally forgot to use it. You know, it was still a terrifying dragon fight, and one person died. So maybe it's a good thing I forgot, but yeah.
Skill challenges that I've had to struggle with, social encounters, maybe like role playing a character at an inn, or doing certain, if you want to start using voices, you know, practice the voices in your car, like I was saying earlier, and then have a low impact NPC. We have some weird voice that you're talking, and you know, an Irish accent. I don't know what is this. I don't know how I'm speaking. Like whatever you're doing, and obviously I need to work on that one. But like,
no, I think that sounded pretty good. Yeah.
Your goblin voice.
Scary the intern. I'm a kobold. Thank you very much. And
And you do that and have that voice be an NPC and work on your voice characterizations for sure, 100%.
So we're talking about weaknesses and getting better at your weaknesses, but I want to make a very big point here. Okay. It's also super important to capitalize upon your strengths, because there are some things you're good at and some things you're bad at. And sometimes you're just bad at something and you're not going to get better at it, no matter how much you train or try to get better. Like there are some people, like we talk about voices right now, like you don't have to do voices. Okay. And there are some people that just can't do them and they will never do them. They are okay to just say, this is part of the game that I'm just not going to do. But I'm going to focus on these other aspects of the game that I'm very good at. I'm going to play to my strengths, and my game is going to be amazing because of that. As a dungeon master myself, world building is not my thing. So, but my games are amazing for my players because I focus on other aspects of the game that I am good at. So you don't have to, weaknesses are fine. Sometimes you're not going to get better. It's okay. Sometimes you just say, you know what? Forget about that. Here are my strengths. I can still run an awesome game with my strengths.
And I think this also goes back to you being the self-aware comment you made earlier about knowing where your weaknesses and strengths are so that you know what to work on. But I'm glad that you said this because the quality of your game session would go very, very low if you're always focusing on the things you suck at and you're just trying to get better at the things you suck at. And then imagine that session. Like they're only going to be encountering the things that you're terrible at. So you're going to come across as a very much worse dungeon master than you actually are. So definitely mix it up and have that central strengths that you build everything around while working on some things on the side.
Number 9, learn the rules before you break the rules. Holy crap, dude, I can't tell you. It's like a new dungeon master gets the books. They're all just like, I'm going to play some D&D. And like the first thing that they want to do with this new game that they've never played before or run the game for, they want to change the rules. They want to poke at things and change things. Like, well, you know what? This feat here doesn't make sense to me. I want to change it. Or these magic items here, this seems kind of weak. Let's just like make this a lot more stronger, right? And it's like you don't even know the rules yet, dude. Like, you literally are learning the game and you're already changing the rules. And I just want to I appreciate the enthusiasm and the desire to go get it, and that's beautiful, right? But like, you are not a professional game designer. Now, could we make an argument that folks, you know, that make the rules sometimes you would question how professional game designers they are too? But the point is, you know, it's okay to want to change the rules and stuff, but you should first understand the rules, play with them for a while, understand how action economy works, understand, you know,
spells and casters, half casters, full casters, action
understand why there's a concentration system in 5th edition and how that does away with what happened in 3.5, where you would buff up before a battle and have like 50 buff spells going on, you know? And so these are important things to understand about the game before you start changing them.
Well, and me being like the homebrew, like I'm all about homebrew, right? And I purposely wanted to put this part on the homebrew channel between the two of us, is like I homebrew the crap out of lots of stuff, but I even within that homebrew, I try and keep it in line with 5th edition. Like I use a certain advantage mechanics, or I use my like the cover system where you have +2 to your armor class if you're with 3/4 cover, and +5 with half cover and all that kind of stuff. Like I do different things where I don't usually add +1s. I'll add +2s and +5s if it's something incremental. But it's because, and I'm able to homebrew better because I know the system I'm homebrewing. So exactly what you said, 100%. You need to know what the game is to understand how to not break or be over or under things. But you also need to, when you do make changes, have it fit in line with the system you're using and understand 5th edition well enough to make a change that still feels like 5th edition. And it's not just like, oh, here's a whole new mechanic with this whole new table and this whole new thing you have to do in this exact situation.
Yeah, it's like there's a point at which you start to question, are we still playing Dungeons and Dragons anymore? Are we playing 5th edition? Or did you write your own game system? It's like when you get like a 50 to 100 page binder of homebrew rules that somebody has made, you're like, okay, what game are we really playing?
Is this D&D still?
And here's the other thing. Can you imagine you get a new player and they've played the game before, they know the rules from the character handbook.
They just barely know D&D,
but then it's like, okay, not only do you need to know the stuff in the character handbook, but here are all my homebrew rules, which, by the way, cancel some of the ones in the player handbook. So you're going to have to keep them straight. And I don't know how you're going to do that, but I wish you luck, you know?
As I kept making more and more homebrew videos, I started getting this repetitive question about like, well, how many homebrews do you use? Do you even play? Like, this is basically 5.5 now. Like, what are you doing? And I was like, I have to make a video. So I made a video about how to homebrew and not how to homebrew new rules, but how to add homebrew, how to implement homebrews into your game. And I have so many. And if you watch all of my videos, you'll be like, man, this guy's game table must be crazy. But I only ever use a select few handfuls at a time. Based on my group. Like if my group really wants to be Exploration McGee and like have a whole adventure where sure I'll have some travel mechanics and all this kind of stuff. We might track encumbrance. Oh my goodness. Like, you know, but in general, you probably won't use those things. So you custom fit the things you do to your game for sure as well. So,
yeah, that's good. I use very few homebrew things in my games as well. And in fact, when you started to remind me about how this is the homebrew channel, I was about ready to have to cancel this collaboration. So now that you have clarified, though, I feel better.
Well, dude, like I feel like what I would want from anyone with my videos is like if you listen to it and you're like, that's interesting, like and then maybe use it for a certain situation, but maybe there's like 1 or 2 rules that just enhance your game and you only use those 2 out of the 100 videos that like you only that's exactly like your game has been enhanced. That's my only goal. That's what I'm trying to do is find those gaps, but you have to know the rules. And the whole thing you said about the professional game designer thing, like it's you can't just make these changes if you don't understand the ramifications that they might have and the bad play experience that could be from that.
Right. Exactly. Yep. 100%. Totally agree.
You might need to, whenever you do homebrew, I say this another thing too, revert back to the rules as written. If you're be ready to do that.
Yes.
Like don't just be like, this is it. Oh, this sucks. Wow.
Dude, I have implemented so many homebrew things over the years that we've played it, we've play tested it. I have an initiative system. You know, we play tested it for like a year, and then we decided we didn't like it a whole lot, and we went back to raw, and I'm happy with it. I love it. You know, it's not like they killed my baby. You know, my baby was ugly. That's okay. You know, send it away. It's fine.
Oh man, yeah. So, but I think overall, I'm really glad I wanted to talk about this. Is that I'm all about homebrew, but you gotta have some experience to be able to start homebrewing, because there's been some ideas I've had where someone pitches a level 1 homebrew spell and it's stronger than a level 3 spell, like straight up side by side comparison. I'm like, all right, you got to do some work. You got to do some training yourself before you're able to, you know what I mean? So
it's like I've ranted on my channel and my streams and stuff that is the number one flaw in homebrew is that people make it way too overpowered. You need to make it comparable with other existing game mechanics and features in the game, which harkens back to understanding the game and the rules so that you can balance those things when you homebrew them.
Number 10 is when you should homebrew, and what circumstances are there when you actually should do and implement homebrew rules of your own or implement runs that I was just going to say we have, but I have.
Let me just cut you off right there because the quick and short answer to this can be really short. Don't homebrew. There you go. Boom, we're done.
All right, guys. Thanks for. Don't do it ever.
Just don't do it. No, but you should do it. So tell us when you should do it.
The moments when I create a homebrew or I look for a homebrew solution, because there's tons of options out there, right? Is either you come up with yourself or you find is the moment where I do it is when I have a feeling, that bad feeling at the game table where something happens and it just feels off. It feels unfair. It feels bad that's what the case was. Like that's what it is. So you can't do that because the rules say, all right.
Right. Yeah, it's like, especially with the new splat books coming out, like Tasha's introducing different player options and stuff. Sometimes these things, it's like, look, no, it can't work that way. We are changing halfling boundless luck. That is going to get changed right here and right now. So and that feels off, and so it necessitates a change. So 100% feel that. Yeah,
because there's been times where like there's a gigantic ancient dragon, and one of the party had sentinel, and they jab it with an opportunity, and now it can't move. And I'm like, all right, well.
No,
that feels a little bad there. Okay, we gotta do something. And then there's my Sentinel rant video. So just feels bad. So when do you put one of my first things was like death saving throw yo-yos, where you just like the moment when people are like, no, I'm not gonna heal them. I'm gonna let them drop so that they can therefore, and then I'm going to then heal them so they're back up. Now that resets their death saving throws. We're good.
It's like they wait until they have 2 failures before they go heal them. It's 100% metagaming. It's
100% metagaming.
And that's why
your friend's dying and you're like, 1 second.
That's why I roll death saving throws myself, and my players don't know what the results were. It emulates that feeling of not knowing whether they're about to die or not, and so they hurry their butts over there and they heal them.
And I don't have my death saving throws reset during a combat. Like they stay. So like if you fail a death save, it stays there, and you come back up. Cool, you're up. But you go back down, it stays there. And
that is so good.
You gotta, it stays. And it's, this is now the tweaks to the homebrew is I've had a reset at the end of combat. Like once combat's lifted, bloop, you're good. I've had it be short rest requirement. I've had it be long rest requirement. Like it just depends on what you're feeling for with the whatever group is, to stop that mechanic, that feeling. But you have to understand, like we talked about in the previous point, you understand death saving throws, how they work. You have to understand all these different types of things. So
and you got to play the game for a little bit, and see how how the raw rules actually work to understand that there's a problem here that needs to be fixed.
How can I? Because I know the game so well, now I can make these little tweaks here. So like, and the same thing happened with like short rest and long rest. So I had a whole system. So like but then if you start implementing systems to fix things, it gets a little too complex. So you got to make sure you stay in the honor and spirit of 5th edition is very simple. You want to try and keep it simple as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the strong suit of 5th edition.
Right.
And I love that part of it. You go too far though, and it becomes much. And that so like that's like a basic rule that I have. When I'm thinking about homebrewing something is, does the added complexity that I'm adding to the game outweigh the fun, or is the fun more than the complexity? Because here's the thing, if the complexity is so much and the increase in fun is like, it's not worth it. But if the complexity is like not too bad, but it increases the game experience, it makes the game better for everybody, well, then that homebrew is probably okay.
Right.
But when you have some convoluted system that's all crazy and janky, and
get the PDF out. Do we have the thing? Where's the chart? Oh, okay.
Roll
so
on the chart and figure
says...
this crap out. Yeah, it's like, it's probably not worth it. It's too complicated.
The first example that came into my head on this is the best homebrews, in my opinion, are when you make the game more simple and it's more fun. You know what I mean? Like those are hard to find, and they're not as. But the one of the ones that popped into my head is that this glancing blow armor class that got a lot of people like, where there's that question I kept getting asked, like when players are like, okay, so my armor class is 17, and I'm like 17 to hit, and they're like, well, does that hit me or does it not hit me? It's like there's this weird moment at the game table, and for new players especially, I'm like, okay, well, 17 is your armor class and you hit it. So for me, a glancing blow, if you hit the armor class exactly, it's half damage. Anything above is full damage. Anything below is a miss, obviously.
Oh, that's nice. I like that.
It's simple. It's easy to remember, and it actually helps people remember. 17, and they get a little excited. Half damage, and like it has been more smooth and streamlined from my experience. That I added something that made things more intuitive. I feel like. So
Yeah. I should watch your channel more. These are good ideas.
But I think now for homebrewing, apart from the rules of the game, to homebrew character stuff, the homebrew subclasses and homebrew class, whatever, is I like to empower my players to be able to live out their character's fantasy or their class fantasy, like what they want to be able to accomplish. And if there's a certain type of tweak to the thing that they like, one of my druids really wanted to be a wind, like manipulate the wind. They wanted to deal damage with wind, so I had to homebrew some stuff onto their gust cantrip under certain situations to be able to blow them into things and deal damage and stuff. So trying to find the windows when you can help someone accomplish like not their dream or their goal or whatever, and find those little windows to homebrew as well. That's my only other time.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's beautiful.
This was a super fun collaboration, and I really love doing it, but we're not done. We're taking this collaboration to the next level and continuing it on over to our Patreon. We are each sharing some of our bonus content with the other to give each of our audiences some extra bonus value for the month of May. So during the month of May, my Young Dragon tier and higher patrons will get the full PDF that you normally would get on top of the stuff Luke's bringing in. He's bringing an entire adventure with maps, a bunch of traps, and a lot more. So the value we're bringing this month is truly next level. And if you like this stuff, if you like this collaboration, if you want to see us do more of these, we love doing it. We want to see if you guys loved us doing it, and we can do this again. So leave comments down below on what DM questions you'd have you want to see us tackle. We could do an intermediate DM version and an advanced DM version. I want to stop and say this too. Luke Hart is a great guy, and I truly mean this. I watched his channel before I was a YouTuber at all. I watched a ton of his videos, and I was able to become a dungeon master much faster through just binge watching his content, and I have been inspired to do the same. So I started becoming a YouTuber. It sounds weird to say. I make YouTube videos now, and now we're doing a collaboration together and creating content together. It's absolutely crazy for me, and it's been an awesome experience. And behind the scenes, you guys don't know this, he's been helping me a lot, showing me the ropes of this whole YouTube thing, how it works, and now we're able to kind of bounce ideas off each other and try and help each other out. It has truly been an awesome process, and I appreciate Luke so much. So Luke, thank you if you ever end up seeing this part of the video. But you guys, Dungeon Crew, seriously, go over there, check them out, show them some love, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. You know, neither of us really ask people to subscribe anymore. That's another thing that neither of us really do. We just want to give you guys good content and hope you watch it. If any of that Patreon stuff sounded cool, the link for that's right here. I do monthly PDFs every single month with tons of homebrew content in there, and sometimes even more bonus content. And his videos right here. I'm in a skit. He let me be the wizard and the dungeon master. So until next time, stay creative and think outside of the box.